Ribal al-Assad, who is, among many other things, the chairman of the Iman Foundation. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mouzi. And it's a great pleasure to be here amongst so many distinguished guests. Let me first start by saying that the situation we are in today, the problem that we are facing around the world, Europe, Russia, China, the United States, of having the greatest menace and the greatest threat to our national security, it's not something new. And actually, I found it a bit astonishing that some people said that it took us by surprise. It hasn't taken us by surprise, because we have been, myself, I have warned for the past 3.5 years, our organization did, that if we continue on allowing our allies in the region to promote sectarian hatred and sectarian divide, this is what's going to happen. Unfortunately, in my country, for example, let's start saying about Syria, which led to actually this whole mess that we are in today. In Syria, we went on backing an opposition that was mainly, Islamist in nature, without taking, into regards that there are minorities in Syria. Everybody wanted change in Syria. Everybody wanted democratic change in Syria. Everybody wanted to live as we are living in Europe and in the Occident, in the West. But unfortunately, we did not want to go backward to Sharia law and such, Islamist rhetoric that has been going on lately. In Iraq, same as in Syria. We have seen the rise of the Islamic State, which has started in 2006, but it has came to Syria because there was a certain atmosphere that allowed it to prosper, that allowed it to grow, because there was money coming in from certain country, there was support, there was television channels who were set up and purposely to encourage and to incite sectarian hatred, violence, and killing. And we have been telling them, you have to shut them down if we want to see, people all around, the Middle East live in harmony. If we want to see genuine democracies taken on in the Middle East and beyond. Unfortunately, again, some of Syria's neighbors and other regional powers who are our allies, including Turkey, have not listened to that. Instead, they have incited, they have allowed foreign fighters to come into Syria. As Mr. Vice President Biden said lately, that our biggest problem in the region was our allies who did not want to listen to the United States when they said, please stop supporting those extremist factions in the Middle East. And this is exactly what has led to where we are today. Today there is a coalition. Everybody is in they're running around trying to find a solution to ISIS, and I think it's going to be very difficult because, first of all, we're not after a brand name. The Islamic State, is just a brand. We're after the underlying ideology, which is the ideology of those Islamist extremists who believe in killing all those who do not share their perverted ideology. This is not genuine Islam. And as His Majesty King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia said lately, that this is not the true Islam, that we have to promote the true Islam and to be against fitna, because fitna is the biggest sin in Islam. And unfortunately, nobody has listened. Unfortunately, the same countries, some of them, let's say, give an example about Kuwait, where the United States said that one of the Minister of Justice in Kuwait was backing al-Nusra, was funding al-Nusra. All what he was allowed to do, it was to resign. He was not brought to justice, and this is not going to make the situation better. If we are to stand for our values, we have to stand for our values everywhere. We have to stand firmly and strongly for our values. We have to support the values of human rights, democracy, and human rights everywhere. If we want people to believe in the West's values, which are not actually Western values, they are universal values. And the problem today, we cannot lie or be hypocritical about it, because there are, as you know, satellite television, there are alternative media, and the people are able to see what's going on. They are able to see that there are, on one side, we are promoting democracy and freedom in one country, and on the other side, we are forgetting about other countries who are supposed to be our allies. So how could that happen? If we are to be for democracy and freedom, as I said, we have to be for it and fight for it everywhere. And on the question of Turkey yesterday. I heard His Royal Highness speaking about Turkey, and Turkey could have a solution. I don't think that Turkey could have a solution, because let me first speak as a Syrian and then as an Arab. As a Syrian, Turkey, as much as as Israel or Iran, are countries who are occupiers. For Syrians, we learned that in our school books, I mean in the curriculum, that Turkey occupies a great part of Syrian territory, which is much larger than the Golan Heights, actually. As same as Iran, who occupies Ahwaz, and as Israel, the Golan Heights. So there cannot be a difference between an occupier and another occupier. Not because one is from that religion or the other. An occupier is the same, and we have to treat them in the same way. Also, Turkey, under Mr. Prime Minister, President, Erdogan, has had a creeping policy of Islamization. They have backed, as we have seen, the Muslim Brotherhood. They have backed them in Egypt. They have backed them in Syria, and they have backed other factions such as Al-Nusra. And we lately saw in the town of Kobani that they found themselves in a very difficult situation. It was either they defend the Kurds, and they would find themselves into a conflict with those, IS, Islamic State, or Al-Nusra, and other groups, similar groups, which they have helped and supported to infiltrate into Syria, or they would fight or they would fight the Kurds, or they would allow for the Islamic State to attack the Kurds, and they would have had problem with over 20 million Kurds in Turkey. And we have seen that an attack came on the Kurds from Kobani, from inside Turkey, from the Islamic State, which shows again that Turkey has been backing strongly those Islamist groups, and Turkey needs to change. If these are our allies, they have to understand that the world has changed. If they are allies, they have to support our values. If they are allies, they cannot be sponsoring terrorism. This is the most important thing. How could you be my ally, or how could you differentiate between countries who sponsor terrorism when you talk about Iran and then you allow countries, for example, as Turkey? And as I told you, many people, including, as I said, Mr. Vice President Biden, and others, have pointed the finger at countries, at our allies in the region, who have been supporting terrorism. And unfortunately, if this does not change, we're going to find ourselves as the former deputy head of the CIA said, Mr. Michael Morell, before he left a year ago, he said that today those Islamist groups in Syria, he said that not this August, the August before that, have become the greatest threat to our national security, greater than the threat of Iran and North Korea, which people should have understood in the region. That means we should start talking to Iran. Because if they are greatest threat, it's not only those groups on the ground, it's who is behind them, who is backing them, who is supporting them, who is funding them, who is inciting on this religion, on this sectarian divide. Unfortunately, when we had someone like Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, who incited last year on killing, he said, I'm calling on all Sunnis to go and kill Shias and Alawites in the Middle East, and all Sunnis who could carry an arm should go do that. Well, this is not exactly calling a democratic change in Syria or Iraq or any other country. And unfortunately, we have the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia who came out and welcomed the, Mr. Qaradawi's speech. Thank you very much.
J'ai une petite observation, un commentaire et deux questions qui ne sont pas provocantes. L'observation est qu'on a dit, et je crois, que les conflits et les guerres au nom de Dieu ne se terminent jamais, parce que Dieu n'est pas là pour trancher. Ça, c'est la première observation. La deuxième, les questions sont les suivantes à M. Meir. Que pensez-vous du projet d'un État juif comme condition pour accepter deux États en Palestine et en Israël? Ça, les premières questions. Deuxième question à M. Assad. Vous êtes président d'une association de liberté. Où était la liberté avant 2011 en Syrie? Merci.
Shall we take another question and then you answer, please?
It was a fascinating discussion on the Middle East, and it was touched upon yesterday and in some of the other panels. But the one place that we simply haven't mentioned, which is a place very close to the part of the world where I come from, which is the Balkans and Southern Europe, is Libya. And that's a place which is in hardly a good shape, and there is an element of responsibility when it comes to international community as to what led to the situation that we have right now in that country, with vast repercussions for stability of wider African region and the greater Middle East. So there is very, very little interest in the face of Fahesh, in the face of the more imminent threats and challenges. But we talked about a number of things that we might try, and the Israeli-Palestinian issue was one, and there is not going to be a deal with Iran. That would be transformational for better or for worse. But this place is in clear need of assistance and support. As I said, there was an element of external responsibility for the situation that we have right now. There was an acquiescence on behalf of those who have not intervened directly. I'm referring to Russia. So we're all kind of responsible as a family of nation for this situation there. Is there anything that can be done, and whose leadership could it be this time? Not from behind, but from the front.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Riyad. But I didn't really understand, your question, because we all know that there was no democracy and freedom in Syria, and that's why the reason that the people of Syria has risen against the government, actually. But their demands at the beginning, we all understand that they were for freedom and genuine democracy, and not something that, not to exchange the dictatorship for theocracy. Unfortunately, a lot of people, again, in the region did not want genuine democracy to go on in Syria, because that would threaten their own countries, and have funded, and sent groups who do not, who do certainly not want to see any democracies in the Middle East, and certainly not in Syria. We have suffered, myself personally, my family, we have suffered a lot from the regime, even though they're our family, so I could imagine how the Syrian people have suffered also. But that doesn't mean that we have to react with grudges. It's not, you cannot build democracy and freedom based on grudges. We have to be able to build for a country like Syria and Lebanon, as you are yourself from Lebanon. We are a beautiful mosaic of people in these countries, and the only way to protect this beautiful mosaic is to have a genuine democracy. Mr. Hubert Védrine said earlier that democracies in the Middle East cannot, in Europe, cannot be maybe replicated in the Middle East. Well, maybe, but it needs a process. The process needs to start somewhere. We cannot, it's something that has to be transitional. Nobody said that you're going to get it tomorrow. It has to be transitional, peaceful. If it doesn't get, it's certainly not going to be built over the bodies of 200,000 people who have died. And by the way, 200,000, yes, they were died because the regime, because of the regime was responsible, but not because the regime killed them. 80,000% of them were killed by the Islamists and the rebels and others who, and they are part of the security forces and the military. So we cannot just, they are not only black and white here. There's
you said 18 or 80?
80,000. 80,000 are members actually of the security forces and the military. And, minorities have suffered a lot. So what about those minorities who also wanted, does anyone believe that minorities in Syria don't want democracy? Does anyone believe that a Christian or an Alawite or a Druze or a Shia or Kurds doesn't want a genuine democracy in Syria? Of course they do. But they do not want to see, as His Royal Highness said yesterday, there are video on YouTube and other social media, and people are seeing what's going on, are seeing that our people are killing Christian people, they are killing Alawites, they are killing other minorities just to belong for a certain sect or religion. They are killing Kurds, they are killing whoever does not share their perverted ideology. And this is the big problem. And this is why we cannot let it's like I always say the same thing. We cannot let, if your two children are fighting, you cannot leave them in a room and tell them, well, guys, resolve your issues and I'll come back an hour later to, and see how it goes, because they're going to kill each other. And this is the same thing. People in the Middle East are not ready. They have no experience. It took Europe, it took the West hundreds of years to get to the democracy where we are today. So it's going to take also the Middle East a lot longer. But we have been there. The West has been there. there has been also sectarian wars. So we know how to help them so that they don't have to go down that road. We have to help them through education, investing a lot into education. Because on the other side, there's another torrent that's investing in Islamic extremism, and they are spending a lot of money. What are we doing to counter that? There are billions of dollars on satellite TVs, on internet websites, on social media and others. You know, just a month ago, the information minister of Saudi Arabia, Minister Khoja, issued a decree to close down a satellite TV that is based in Saudi Arabia and that incites hatred, killing and violence against minorities, you know. And unfortunately, the next day he was sacked and the TV was reopened again. This shows again that there is also a problem in Saudi Arabia. You know, the king, we all know, you know, and we have, you know, between my father and I mean, there's an old friendship which His Royal Highness knows very well, between him and the king, and we trust in the king. But unfortunately, Saudi Arabia, when we talk about the kingdom, is also not one current. There are currents in Saudi Arabia, like many other countries. Some want to go forward. Some want to fight extremism. Some want to put those ISIS, al-Nusra, as a Muslim Brotherhood on the list of terrorism. But on the other hand, there's a very strong current who is stopping that. And this is why we have to come together. And as I mean, when I talk I was raised in the West. I was raised in France. I've studied in the US. I've studied in the UK. I've been living since I was 9 years old abroad. So I consider myself as a citizen of the world and not just as a Syrian. As we have to come together and help the people, and we owe it to them because they look up to us. When they are looking for, when they went into the streets and asked for democracies and freedom, they were looking up to us. They were looking west. They were looking on the lives that we have, and this is that was their example. And we can only do that if we come together, if we leave our differences aside. I mean, with China, Russia, the problems that they have with the US and Europe, and we have to put our differences aside. Why? Because we all share one common enemy. There was fascism and Nazism at one time. Today we have Islamism, and if we don't come together to defeat it, it is threatening each one of our countries. You know, Europe today is saying, after 4 years, they are saying now again that there is, all those foreign fighters that are going to Syria are becoming the greatest threat to their national security. But also there are conflicting reports. The Europeans are saying there are 3,000 fighters, Western fighters, that went into Syria. Eric Holder from the US said there are 7,000 Western fighters. There's a big gap between both. 7,000, it's very dangerous. Those people, once they go get trained and they get, Islamicized and they come back to Europe, what are we going to do about them? How could you stop them? First of all, you shouldn't have allowed them to go there. But now, how are we able to stop those extremists going there? And you read other reports saying that the extremists, the foreign extremists, not Western, the foreign extremist number in general is 15,000. How could there be 7,000 from the West and another 8,000 from all other Islamic countries? This does not make sense. The number must be 10 times higher because of lack of education, because of poverty, because of all of that. If there are 7,000 from the West, there are certainly 70,000 from other countries. Thank you very much.